Hello everyone, my name is Christian Sasse. We're going to start in a moment. This is SassePhoto. This channel is all about wildlife, preservation of wildlife, conservation of wildlife. And I'm happy to have you all here. It's been rather exciting this week. So I've been at the IOC. I'll tell you what the IOC is about in a moment. Got some very interesting and very curious interviews there. So very nice to see all of you, and so I'm going to mute my microphone, so we'll start in less than 2 minutes. See you soon. Hello everyone and welcome. It's another Friday. And what a week it's been. It's been an incredible week because I've been working in the morning, then I work in the evening, and in between I sneak out, take the SkyTrain to Vancouver, lovely Vancouver, which you can see in the background, some of the beautiful scenes from Vancouver. And it was the first time I was at the IOC. Well, IOC, everybody thinks is the, what was it? International Olympic Committee? Well, not really. Try and say ornithological. Practice the word ornithological. I can tell you, even the bird experts don't get the word ornithological. I practiced it a lot before I went on the show today. It's quite a word, right? It's quite a word. International Ornithological Congress. Yeah, that's what it was. Congress. Conference in Vancouver. And it was an incredible honor because this conference is only held every 4 years. In fact, the next one is in 2022 in Melbourne. What a coincidence that this happens to be in Vancouver. What an opportunity for me to see what's happening in the bird world of research. First of all, I want to welcome all of you. I'm looking at my one screen. I see Sherry, I see Osprey Mama, very nice. Jackie, Sunny Cat, oh, I can't say that word. Marcy, Lady Hawk, very nice. Amanda, hi Amanda, very nice. Claudemir, I don't want to leave anyone out. Wobbies, yes, hi Wobbies. Christy H, very nice to see you all. I'm going up the list here. Debbie McKay, welcome. Jackie Porter, Susie Q, my wonderful helper, is there. Nature Lover, very nice to have you. Baffle 91, welcome to all of you, and I hope I haven't left anyone out. Mac Lady, I also see. Wonderful to have you all. Really nice to have that. So I'm so thrilled to bring this to you in really high quality HD. So we're streaming in pure HD quality. And wow, what an amazing week it's been. I want to give you a little bit of an introduction. I'm just going to get myself out of the way here. And first of all, I'm going to show you how I actually did it, the technology behind this. So I'm just going to switch back now. Okay, so what you see there is that is my instrument that I went with along in Vancouver that gave me this. It's sort of my own. You know, I'm a little bit of a geek. I love doing things that they come out nice. I improve my gear. I'll show that to you in a moment. But in the meantime, what I just wanted to show to you is my gear. So on the right, I see the live screen, which is about 40 seconds behind. I can see your comments right there, which is really important. This is my main production screen, which runs off an iMac 5K with 64 gigabytes. For those of you who are technological geeks, I can see my wonderful team here. Any comments they put on, if they can't hear me, technical problems, they put your questions in here and so on. Susan North is also there. Very nice to see you all. That's wonderful. Just another very nice to see all of you. And then I have all my different streams nicely prepared here. On the right, I have another computer, which surprises many because I blend in this computer into that computer. Why do I do that? So that I can mix live streams much faster that way. I have a very good sealed microphone here. You can see the microphone just sealed behind this sound barrier, so we don't get any echoes. On the front here, I have a 4K camera looking at me. I've got another camera there in case that fails right up there. I've got another screen here, which I'm not using at the moment, and I've got a keyboard and so on. So you can see it's really technical, but let me switch over from my one camera to the other so you can actually see a little bit of the device before we start. So I'm going to just see which camera I should be using. Let's try this camera. Yeah, let's try this camera, and let's just get me out of the way there. 1 second. Just get me out of the way here. Okay, that should work. So that is another camera. So with this, I'm just going to show my device. Yeah. So this is the device I've been using. And as you can see in the back here, that's the live view that you've just been seeing. So it's a very nicely balanced, it's called a gimbal. They call this a gimbal. So what I did here is, because the new iPhones are very good, this is an 8 Plus that I'm using, which is high quality. That, by the way, is a directional microphone. It's a parabolic microphone from Soundshark that I use in order to, under high noise environment, which was very often in Vancouver, the way that I can actually get the speakers out. So you'll be seeing a lot of, noticing that I have a very high quality microphone. Sometimes you'll still hear a lot of noise, especially in the poster sessions. I've got 2 poster sessions that I recorded live, very young, really bright students working on incredible work. And so this was a really helpful device. This, as you can see, is perfectly balanced. Look at that. When I move, the phone stays in perfect balance. That is very important, because not only am I a little bit nervous when I run around and it all shakes a little bit, right? But there are many other instances. Someone knocks against you and it keeps it perfectly stable. I even attached another battery onto here. You can see another additional battery, which really looks weird, because that battery actually feeds the iPhone, so I never run out of juice. So that's the whole idea. This is my own mimic that I've made. I've changed it so that I can use the iPhone 8 Plus for a microphone, extra charge, and so on. So that's what it's all about. So let me just switch this off, because we won't need this right now. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, so that's the exciting stuff. I will go back, use my other camera, because this is much better. This camera is much better quality than the other camera. This is just perfect. So what you see in the background actually is the International Ornithological Practice. That word, ornithological, say it a few times. The International Ornithological Conference in Vancouver I just talked about, and that's their live web screen, which is beautiful. Beautiful Vancouver. That's why I moved to Vancouver in 2007, because it's such a lovely place. If you love wildlife and love nature, this is one of the best places to be. And that is actually the registration page. So I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller now, disappear off in the corner. That's much better. That's much better. And just show you what their website looks like. So that is their website, and you can see it's held at the moment. Let's just see if this is coming out properly. Yes, it should be. It should be. Let's just expand this a little bit. There you go. So that's in beautiful British Columbia here, where that's my hometown, and very lucky, of course, to be here. And they gave me this wonderful pass, by the way. Where is this wonderful pass? I have it somewhere. I just have to show you, which was a real privilege. Ah, there we go. That was the pass. Oh, well, let's just make this large again. So they gave me this wonderful pass here, which means I'm press. I've never been press in my life before. Well, that's the first time I'm press. So I had a free pass wherever I wanted to, because they saw this channel as something that is worthy, because they looked at my channel and they liked the things I've been doing. So they gave me a free pass to go wherever I wanted to, which I am making full use of. I will be back there, by the way, tomorrow and after tomorrow, which is really wonderful. So let me just get out of the way again quickly. There we go. So that is the Congress. So the conference. Lots going on. The leading world experts in bird, in ornithology, are there. And my goodness, there are hot topics there. Topics I wouldn't have even dreamt of, because actually I know very little about bird research. We've talked to a lot of falconers, and we've talked to some people, but very few people actually from the university world and from the top research. And that was why I was so curious, what are they doing? So what are the topics for today? 4 topics we're going to have. The first topic has to do with the sense of smell of some birds. Well, we know about turkey vultures and so on that have a very good sense of smell, but are there other ones, other birds, and how do they actually use their sense of smell? The second topic is a very hot topic, and it is about the research of plastics and the involvement of plastics. Also, what role do degradable plastics actually have? Do they help, and so on? And how does that work in our environment and together with nature, and especially with birds? Third topic, really interesting, from an ex-Russian professor, and he has incredible knowledge on drones. Again, Steller eagles. My goodness, did he show me his clips from Steller eagles from Siberia. I was absolutely flabbergasted. Very interesting interview for you. And the fourth one, an incredibly hot topic by an absolute expert who took the effort of looking of the influence of cats and birds. Now you will be shocked. This is a scientific approach. Another interview. I had a great help. I had Professor David Bird. Some of you may know him before. Professor David Bird helping me with the interview, which was really good because he's an absolute expert at these topics, and I was more the cameraman, which I love doing because it helped me really get quality. Now you would say, why, Christian, why didn't you bring this live? I actually found out that it's better to cut the clips accordingly and give you the best. I had many things, but I really wanted to give you something that has a lot of juice and fire. The good news is I've got so much interesting material. I'm just going to run this in the background here whilst I talk. So this is what I broadcast live a few days ago from the conference. The reception wasn't that good, but you could see some of the devices there. This was at the bird expedition. This is something I'm really interested in buying myself. That is a sound recorder. Remember, we were talking last week about how difficult it is to listen to sound, right? We don't get, I mean, with pictures, you can still take excerpts, but sound comes from everywhere, and you get so much environmental pollution of sound. So these are special recording devices you can time, and they are weatherproof. These are some of the artists that are there, quite incredible. You know, they do beautiful, beautiful art on eagles and so on. And I've often been asked for my pictures too. Oh, that was, by the way, someone who didn't like to be filmed. I haven't come across many such people, but some people are just awkward. It's just really funny. And then you have other artists who are absolutely delighted, like this woman, laughing and so on. Well, people are different, aren't they? So you get them everywhere. But as you can see, there was so much attention everywhere. And I don't know why it stopped there, the stream. Are we still live? Let me just see. Yes, I think we are still live. For some reason it stopped there, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to stop that. And that brings me to our first topic. Which is really interesting. We're going to talk about the sense of smell. Now, I hadn't even heard of these birds before. Because my knowledge of birds in general is really poor. I don't know much about birds. I'm very interested. I'm an incredibly curious person. As you know, I've done amazing slow motion films on hummingbirds and so on. But as such, I don't know much about birds. I'm more interested in the science of birds, very often why they fly and so on. But this is something really interesting. I'd never heard of the Leach's storm petrel, which is a shorebird and or seabird. And what is interesting about this bird, and here you can actually see it, it relies very much on its sense of smell. And that brings us to the first interview of today. So I'm just going to mute my microphone so we don't get any interference. Just give me a little bit of time because I have to jump backwards and forwards.
I'm here at the IOC post-assessment with Sarah Jennings of the University of California, Davis. And she's working on a very, very interesting part of birds that we know little about, and it has to do with avian smell.
So until about the 1960s, the sense of smell in birds was really overlooked, and there were some very seminal papers by a scientist called Bang looking at the olfactory bulb in relation to the brain size in birds. And that was sort of the first really great evidence showing that actually many species of birds have an olfactory bulb, and they're not actually anosmic, which means they don't smell. And in fact, the group of birds that I work on, the Procellariform seabirds, are known to have an incredibly large olfactory bulb relative to their brain size, which suggests that they have an exceptional sense of smell.
And I can think of two other birds out there in the world that also have great sense of smell. The kiwi.
Yes.
Walks around at night, apparently. Walks around at night going like that, smelling earthworms underneath the ground. And of course the turkey vulture.
Turkey vulture,
That's
yes.
another great one. That's one of the best smellers in the business. And so you're talking about bird perfume here. Can
Yes.
you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that?
So these birds that I work on, the Leach's storm petrel, have an incredibly stinky body odor. So paired with their exceptional sense of smell is a very pungent plumage. And it's known that these birds, which are nocturnal at their breeding site and mate for life, are using their sense of smell to relocate their mate on an annual basis. And so the goal of my work is to actually look at what kind of chemicals exist in that body odor and whether the odor is actually serving as a sort of fingerprint for that bird. So does it indeed reflect the identity of the individual?
So this is not the same thing though as the crested auklets that smell like a tangerine.
No, unfortunately, it's not as tasty smelling as the tangerine flavor. It's a much more musty odor, and I don't think anyone in auklets has shown that each bird has a unique scent, which is what we're working on here to show that pairs that mate over their 35-year lifespan can actually rely on this scent cue when they come back to the breeding colony each year to say, sniff, sniff, yes, you are my mate, or no, you're not.
And who are you doing this study under?
I work at University of California, Davis with Gabrielle Nevitt and Susan Ebler. Gabby Nevitt is an expert in avian olfaction, and Susan Ebler is actually a wine chemist, and she is known for her work on studying the scents of wine, and so we have adapted a lot of her methods to actually look at scents associated with feathers.
Well, thank you very, very much. We wish you the very best, Sarah, in your career. You're a very articulate young lady. I think you're going to do well.
Thanks you so much.
Thank you. I'm here at the IOC post-assessment with Sarah Jennings of the University of California, Davis. And she's working on a very, very interesting part of birds that we know little about, and it has to do with avian smell. But I'm here at the IOC.
Just got to stop that. Yes, that's better. That's better. So we get... They put the conference picture back in the background. Well, I found that quite exceptional. So I have Sarah Jennings' webpage in the background. So I'm just going to make myself smaller so you can see it properly. That is her website, and it's wonderful to see how young people from an early age are so involved in ecology, and they are doing absolutely remarkable work here. So this is her homepage. That's the one I found. You can see it says Sarah Jennings is a PhD candidate in the graduate group in ecology. Before joining the Nevitt lab, Sarah worked as a researcher at the University of Washington studying seabird bycatch in global fisheries. Really interesting subject, and so on. So very knowledgeable young lady, and very articulate, as Professor Bird correctly said, and has a really beautiful website. So that was interview number 1. I hope you enjoyed that. So let's go to interview number 2. We are going now to Vancouver, and this is all about plastics. And the next interview is with Erika Holland. Erika Holland, another young, very articulate, intelligent woman. And she's going to talk about the anthropogenic, another difficult word. So that is the human intervention of debris and what effects they have. A big hot topic, right? So let me just jump over and mute my microphone. Just give me a second.
David Bird here. I'm at the International Ornithological Congress at the Vancouver Convention Center, downtown Vancouver here. I'm interviewing Erika Holland here, who's from Acadia University, because she's doing some very interesting studies. But first of all, let's hear a little bit more about you, Erika. Where are you from?
So I'm actually from Vancouver area originally, and I moved out east to pursue my studies for about 8 years.
All right.
And I've returned back to Vancouver because Vancouver is really the place where plastic awareness is growing.
Okay. And have you always been interested in birds?
I have since age 7.
Since age 7?
Yes.
And are you a bird watcher as well?
I'm a bird watcher and a total bird nerd.
So you're also doing academic degrees in birds as well?
Yes, I am.
What are your long-term goals? Are you going to do a PhD?
Eventually I will, and that's a question a lot of people ask. But honestly, what I want to get into right now is actually public education and outreach, doing stuff like this and getting this knowledge out to the public.
Which is exactly what we're doing right here.
Exactly, it is.
And so, could you tell us a little bit about why people should be paying attention to plastics? I mean, there's been all this talk about the straws plastic straws that a lot of industries are now starting to get rid of because they're getting caught in the nostrils of turtles and so on. Could you tell us a little bit about plastics and birds?
Yeah, so plastics are a huge problem in birds, and you've probably heard about it a lot in marine birds. It is also an issue in freshwater birds, as we'll likely touch on later. And it may not be an issue that you would really see or think about, but it does reflect in these birds, causing death through entanglement or ingestion. And plastics also act as magnets for pollutions. So if you are a hunter consuming birds that have consumed plastics, you could indirectly actually be consuming the pollutants these plastics have put in these birds.
Oh my goodness gracious. And so what is your study here looking at freshwater birds in Canada? What are you contributing to our knowledge of this subject?
So I started this study about 3 years ago, and when I got started on it, there were only 2 other papers looking at plastics in freshwater birds at the time. Okay. So this study was really just to lay the groundwork and to assess if this was a problem in Canada, if our freshwater birds were eating plastics.
And is it a problem?
It is a problem, yes.
I knew the answer to that right away.
Yeah, a bit of a leading question.
What are some of the sources of plastics that are out there that people in the ordinary walk of life should be careful about using or not using or discarding?
Well, so the big one 3 years ago was microplastics, and we happily managed to phase those out.
What's a microplastic?
So microplastics are the small plastics, 5 millimeter size, and we had them in our exfoliating agents for a while as microbeads.
Oh, I see, okay.
And when we phased those out, that became less of a problem, which is great. And we've moved on, as you mentioned earlier, to straws now, which are another large.
That's the hot thing right now.
It is,
straw thing. And I understand that there is a huge floating island of plastic debris out in the sea somewhere. Have you heard about that? It's called the Cabbage Patch or some crazy name. It's changed.
I've heard of it. I've never personally seen it, but yeah, when plastics get into the ocean and the currents float them.
Apparently it's the size of a province or a small country, I've heard. It's huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, I've heard these too, like I said.
Well,
I've never seen it. But.
Erika, we really, really wish you the best of success in your academic pursuits, and whether you go on for a PhD or go into public outreach or both, wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for talking. talking to me.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick question on degradable plastics. What about them, maybe?
So from what I understand about biodegradable plastics, it's a great idea, but it only really works when they're in a system where they can biodegrade. So if your municipality doesn't have a composting system that can degrade these plastics, they're no more compostable than any other sort of plastic.
Thank you. Very good. Well, isn't that interesting? Especially the answer on degradable plastic really surprised me. I had no idea that you know, that degradable plastic. Let me just get the conference picture back in there, right? Oh, that's her paper anyway. So another very you know, very well spoken, very knowledgeable young lady, absolutely magnificent, with a very hot topics. Well, so there you go. Just buying degradable plastics is not good enough. We have to do a lot more. And obviously this type of research is very interesting. It's very nice to see that this type of research is conducted in Vancouver. Just a quick hello to some more friends who've just arrived. I can see Hal Sherman, my great friend, is here. Very nice to have you. And also, who else has arrived? Yes, Pacific Northwest Kate from Vancouver has also just jumped in. Nork Bird 2 I just see coming in. So very nice to have all of you. If I've missed someone, forgive me, because I'm really trying to follow the stream and do everything at the same time. Multitasking is not usually a man's strength, as you know. So I'm trying. Okay, so that was interview number 2, which was interesting. And then, well, fortunately, Professor Bird knows so many people. That's really, he is one of the key figures at this type of conference. And I was very lucky because we just conducted one interview after the next. So now we go to some of the leading experts. This time we're going to go to an expert to Siberia. And this was absolutely fascinating. These people, you know, what they have gone through, and their experiences are second to none. They have such a worldly experience. It's wonderful, really wonderful to see that. And they live in the States, and that's great for the States. Not going to comment anything else. I'm so happy to see that there are such, and of course there's so many knowledgeable, great people in the States, and they are also very outspoken. I find this in our current and political environment really important. I won't say more than that, but I think some of you will understand what I'm getting at. So anyway, let's, without further ado, I'm going to jump in there. What I will do is I'm going to show you whilst he is speaking, because I think it's about a 10-minute interview or so. I'm going to blend in some of his streams. He has gone off with a boat to Siberia and looked at Steller eagles. He's a drone expert, and he gave me something very interesting, which I will show at the end. So I'm going to blend in some of his clips while he's speaking. So just bear with me. I'm going to mute again.
Sitting here with Eugene Potapov, a dear friend of mine for many years, and a professor at Breenathan College in Philadelphia. Eugene, we've known each other for almost 30 years. We met at a bird of prey conference, I think, in Berlin.
Absolutely.
And what were you working on in those days in Russia?
Well, to start with, we had to go across the wall. Berlin Wall was still in place at the time, and it was a big hall.
Yes.
And this conference was actually making a venue for the people to come together from both sides of the wall.
You mean you climbed through a wall?
No, there was
hole in the wall?
It was a hole in the wall, literally. Yes, literally.
Really?
Yes. And the place itself, remember, it was held in old Stasi school.
Yes, I remember.
Yes.
We were all checking our lamps in our room to see if we were being taped.
I remember we had very vivid conversation about Stasi, and there was one vent at the ceiling, which was semi-open, and we were joking that, you know, Ger Oberst was watching for us. Okay. 10 minutes later, a guy came with a screwdriver and closed it up.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how you. No interpretation. So it was absolutely random.
Yeah.
It was not related, but obviously the conversation did have some material.
In those days, in 40 years of my life, I worked on American kestrels and so on. It was kind of my thing, whatever. Then later on, also loggerhead shrikes at McGill University. But what were you working on in those days? I mean, you were a bird of prey guy, so what
Correct.
were you?
That was the Arctic. So at that time, I was deeply involved with rough-legged buzzard or hawk studies.
Okay.
All raptors which are eating lemmings, snowy owls, in particular short-eared owls, and on the side I had peregrine and gyrfalcon studies, because at that time it was almost impossible to publish because I was afraid of poachers.
Oh, okay.
And I remember vividly you had this small pin with 3 morphs of gyrfalcon.
Well, 2. It was 3. A dark one and a white one.
No, you had 3. You had the intermediate one.
I don't think I did.
Okay, maybe. Okay, well, it was very. It was the logo. I still keep it. I still treasure it.
It was the logo of my McDonald Raptor Research Center, later on Avian Science Conservation Center.
Correct.
But it was a white one and a dark morph. It was a male and a female as well.
Labrador
and
one.
I gave those away to special people, and that's why you got one.
I treasure that. It's still somewhere on my wall.
Thank you very much. I love it. Can I just interject for a second? This is you can take this out. I have that logo this big above my front door in my house over on Vancouver Island. I love it so much, and I'm going to be putting it on a place down in Mexico as well. Anyway, come back to telling us a little bit about those birds you were studying, the falcons and so on.
So that was a really remote place in Siberia, and interestingly, I'm still going to this place to see this amazing and really bad global change.
Okay.
Permafrost is melting. So at that time, I didn't know anything. We thought that the tundra is more or less stable, and we need to get more things in detail. So we have a very good record of normal birds, waders, whatever. And my particular interest was this sort of cyclicity in lemmings and how the birds of prey respond in area which I selected myself. So the selection criteria was pretty simple. You get maximum range of Mi-8 helicopter. Fly on the full tank, and I thought that would be the limit of exploration for oil and gas.
Okay, all right.
And little I knew that the whole thing would be down the drain because the country disappeared.
Yes.
So the entire system, which would sort of explore for oil and gas in this place, totally disintegrated. So the whole place now is isolated, and there is very little interference from humans directly. Indirectly, big change. That's a different story.
I've always envied you, Eugene, because you wrote that book, co-wrote that book on the gyrfalcon. It's my favorite bird, and I was so envious that, gee, I wish I'd got to know you when you were even thinking about writing that book. I would have.
You were inspirational for that book.
I would have been glad to have been a co-author in that book. But anyway, that's past history or whatever. But
we can do the same thing because now we're entering another page on the story. The gyrfalcons, they are endangered because of different policies. We know the Arctic countries, they play different balls nowadays.
Really?
Absolutely, yes. And the whole story is now concerning about the fluctuation of ptarmigan, which are deeply affected of shrub intervention.
There was a whole conference on this, run by the Peregrine Fund.
Yeah, by Boise, we've been there, remember.
I missed the conference,
yes, I know that, but I'm not going to stress that simply because of my modesty. Don't forget the modesty. And, but the whole thing is now we're basically looking at disappearance of a global cycle of ptarmigan. And the gyrfalcon population are not really in great shape there. Plus,
I'm sorry to hear
illegal
that.
trade. Plus illegal trade, which is pretty bad.
They're still doing well in Iceland, and still not doing so bad. We really don't know how well they're doing in northern Canada yet. That data remain to be sort of investigated or whatever. But you got to think that climate change is not going to be good for a big bird like that unless they find some way to adapt.
For Canada, I think since the northern part of Canada is located on the shield, it's not really affected by the melting and disappearing of terrain per se. Whereas Siberia is melting away into the water.
Oh, I see.
So that is a huge difference.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the Canadian shield is actually going to be the last refugia for the gyrfalcon, and indirectly we see that in sort of really amazing variation in black, silver, or white forms, which we'll see in Canada. Nowhere else, because the range spread in northern Canada is the largest. And I remember one of his description of nests you gave to me early in the 90s about white and black.
No, well, yes, it was a white and black parent and in the nest was a white bird, a black bird, and a medium. Exactly. All three morphs were as babies in the nest. That was amazing. But I didn't tell you.
You didn't take the picture.
No, I didn't, and it was stupid of me. But another thing I didn't tell you is that in another nest further north of that particular nest, I found a youngster that was ready to fledge with some other youngsters. I don't remember their colors, but this bird was almost an orangey, kind of faded orangey color. And I thought we were actually going to collect it live for a colony of gyrfalcons at my center, but they were going to fledge, and we didn't want to scare them out of the nest. So we left the bird there, but I didn't take a picture of it. But it was a really unusual color. Turns out I've talked to Kurt Burnham, who's one of the world's experts on gyrfalcons, and he's told me that color has existed as a morph in the gyrfalcon. So, anyway, let's move on to another species that you have studied, the Steller's sea eagle. I know very little about them. Could you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Well, not many people know much about this eagle, so it's rather mysterious simply because there are not that many people study it, and plus it lives in areas where you cannot really get ticket and go there. So there's special infrastructure which you need to run in order to get to these places. And that is one of the largest eagles in the world. It lives in coastal zone only, and that is kind of true Russian endemic, so it doesn't breed anywhere else. And for almost 30 years we monitor the population there, both on rivers and the coastline, and it's kind of low tech, you know, you get the small inflatable dinghy and off you go along the coast, you just bang 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 on the waters, watching the cliffs, trying to stay alive, because any landing is usually associated with meeting bear face to face.
Polar bears?
No, grizzlies.
Oh, grizzlies.
Yeah, grizzlies. It's the forest, Boreal forest zone.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's not up there.
So it's not that north, but it's really severe because the sea and continental climate offers this enormous katabatic winds, so it can go into calm, from calm to real storm in no time. And anytime when the eagles are fed, now and then they drop the fish, either in the rocks or somewhere near the tree. So the bears immediately come and wait for you, basically. So every time you land, you have to watch out. So there were numerous occasions where I ran into bear face to face, and especially not really nice when you actually climb the sea stack, assuming that there is a nice chick there. So you get the bands in one hand and the camera in the other, and try to climb in this slippery gear, because you're just off a boat, and instead of a chick, the bear just stand up from the nest,
you and I have something else in common besides a love for birds of prey. We both independently discovered the great application of drones to look into raptor nests. And you put on YouTube a wonderful video of you flying a drone up above a nest to look inside. That worked out really, really well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, every year we progress. It's now essential tool of trade in our.
It is.
Oh yes, we fly from water. It's not a step we do without a drone now, and it's so amazing tool. You know, just very little invasive. I would say it actually decreases our presence at the nest sites.
But how do the birds react to the drone?
I can show you some clips. So there are, trial and error.
Let me ask that question again.
None.
So how do the birds react to the drone? Do they attack it, or?
Stellars, they don't. They ignore it.
They ignore it. They're like bald eagles. They do the same thing.
Absolutely.
They just sort of escort it around, but they don't.
They might fly by to see what's going on. If the adults actually see the drone while perching somewhere else, so they just want to have a peek and try to see what's going on. But on numerous occasions, we see females sort of tending the chick, continuing feeding it, and we just film delivery of fish by adults to the nest with drone hovering nearby. I can do a lot of tricks, but there are a lot of things which you need to know before you actually fly it. So it's kind of trial and error. But now we live literally with the eagles thanks to the drones. We follow them near the nest. We can follow them to the hunt. We can actually follow them into some intimate things, like they preen and they still ignore us, it actually speed up all the field work. What is enormous result of that is previously when you go to check the nest, if you don't see anything inside, you need to climb. Rock climbing or tree climbing requires at least 40 minutes, and boat has to go out. Tidal periods it might actually accelerate. If you lose the water, you can actually lose 4 hours or more, and plus you expose yourself to the risk from the bears, and plus disturbance on both the nesting tree or the cliff, and the birds, that's totally different because of the long exposure. Nowadays it takes less than 3 minutes.
It's right about the right same
absolutely,
time.
absolutely. You know better picture. You can actually see if there is the nesting attempts nearby. If you started to move the nest, they usually start to bring some trees, so you actually get more information on that. And finally, you can actually look at the places which were previously not accessible. And again, you know, you can do it from the water, from really sort of far away, and the geography is basically spread. Previously, you were along the coastline. Now it's everything beyond, so you can actually see the eye as a sort of much beyond. And I find it really, really useful because it gives you, as you said, point of view, birds' point of view.
Eugene, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're a fun guy, and we have a lot of things in common. So I wish you the very, very best of things in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't that just fascinating? I mean, that was absolutely stunning for me, because here is an absolute world expert, and it's very nice to see him in the States really seriously talking about climate change. So many people are not so outspoken. He was saying there's absolutely serious and no doubt that there's climate change, and you can hear this time and again from really from scientists at these conferences with very high profile, and it's completely clear. Siberia is the ecology and the ecological balance of Siberia is absolutely vital for the whole world. And I may go into another time into that, but the small temperature changes can actually release a lot of methane that is trapped in a lot of these large tundra lakes that are supposed to be completely frozen. We will have an incredible impact on this, and I think we should take this very seriously. Also, what I found absolutely stunning is the adventures of this man talking about. I mean, I've been in Germany when the wall collapsed, and him jumping in and out. By the way, thank you very much for your donation. I can just see Osprey Mama and Glenn Hazelwood. I really appreciate that. It helps me because I pay all my fares. I pay the wireless. All that comes out of my own pocket. So I'm really grateful for the donations. Thank you so much. That supports me and keeps this really free channel for you about the conservation and education of wildlife going. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So coming back to that, I had to, of course, ask him about the Steller eagle quite a lot afterwards because I was so fascinated. Here's a man who goes out with these boats to these remote areas where no tourist has ever been. He told me that the closest road, in fact, was, I think, 300-400 kilometers away. That's the closest road. You cannot even get to the Steller eagles. Fortunately, maybe, excuse me, fortunately, maybe that one cannot reach these areas, but really interesting. And then, of course, I had to ask him. I mean, these Steller eagles are so big. And I said, have you heard about this hybrid eagle? And that's the one that's behind me. I'm just going to make myself smaller. That was the other subject that I was talking about, these giant eagles. Have you ever heard about this hybrid eagle that they apparently saw? That seems to be a crossbreed between a Steller eagle and a bald eagle. And he said, of course, Christian, I have heard about this. This is my expertise. And I just wanted to show you the movie again. This was taken, oh, thank you, Kathy. Thank you very much, Kathy Harder. That is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your kind donations. Really, it helps support the channel. So let me get to this. Some while ago, you may remember when we talked about the Steller eagle, David Hancock had made available to me an incredible clip about a juvenile that does not look like a bald eagle. And now finally, and I've put all the links, by the way, you can find all the links of all the people. I've just put them an hour ago below. You can find all the references of the talks from all the people I interviewed together with Professor Bird, even the link that I'm showing you there about the hybrid bald eagle, which I never found. This describes this crossbreed between the Steller eagle and the bald eagle. But let me just quickly show you the clip again, because it is so unique. I hope I can get this going again. 1 second. Yeah, here we go. So what is so unique about this clip? This was, of course, taken at low resolution, somewhere in Harrison Mills. Now look at the bird there in the background. You see it. This huge bird. It's a huge juvenile. And this whole article about the hybrid eagle discusses this bird, this exceptional bird. And what is remarkable about this bird is usually when others land next to it or look at the other one sneaking up, look at the size difference and look at the beak structure and many other things. That cannot, and that's also what is so discussed in the article, that cannot just be an ordinary bald eagle. This was examined by an expert, and it's an absolutely remarkable clip. I dug it out again to show this to you. And you can see it. I mean, you can see it. The beak looks so much like a Steller eagle. It's just a crossbreed. And it's huge. It's absolutely huge. I mean, it's just, oh my goodness, look at this. Don't you come near me. You know, it's just such a clear message. And that whole paper about the hybrid eagle here, the hybrid bald eagle, sorry, let me just get this, discusses this. What age is the eagle, and so on and so on. So again, this was all filmed and discussed by William Clark. You can see again the pictures here very clearly discussing it, the hybrid, the molt, and everything. So do have a look at this paper. It's absolutely remarkable, and see it together with the clip that I've just shown you. I'll just show you the author again. 1 second. Where are we? Just had him. Here he is, William Clark. So Bill Clark is this very deep-looking, cutting-edge research, what I would call written in August of 2008. I'm so glad that I finally found the reference. Thank goodness I was there at the conference. So that brings us to the fourth topic, and this is another amazing topic. I was really, most of the time, you have to imagine me, I was standing there with with this big microphone, you know, this thing here, right at the background. Let me just, there, I was standing there at the background and holding this big microphone there in the place. Oops, sorry, I'm supposed to get in the camera. And I was so stunned most of the times of what I was hearing. It was really out of this world. So let me just bring in the fourth interview. And this is another absolute brilliant researcher. He calls himself an ecologist, like most of them do, and he's going to talk about an amazing subject, the influence of cats. Let me just put this on the screen so you can see it. So it's all about our cute cats, right? But what influence do they really have? Now, what I found so amazing, and he's going to talk about this, the impact of free-ranging domestic cats on wildlife in the United States. This was accepted by Nature Communication, which is one of the top journals. And what I found so interesting is he talks here about, and initially, about how a single cat hunted to extinction the entire species. This happened in New Zealand, of Stevens Island wren. So he's talking about a particular bird here. When he came there, this is about a lighthouse keeper called David Lyle. I should explain this properly. Let me start again. A lighthouse keeper called David Lyle, who was also an ecologist, came to a lonely island off the coast of New Zealand as a lighthouse keeper, and he had a cute cat that was, well, the cat was pregnant and had its litter ready, and within no time, this beautiful species that one day this cat brought this bird back, and he looked at this bird and it had never been seen before, and it's called a wren, W-E-R-N. That's at least my understanding. I hope I got this correct. And what is so remarkable about this story, by the way, thank you, Terry Green. I really appreciate that. Thank you for all your donations. Very kind of you. So that species went extinct. And so we now come to Peter. I forgot what his surname was, but I'll get there in a second. But he's going to tell you, and thank you, Lady Hawk. That's very kind. Oh, you're all very generous. I so appreciate that. Thank you so much. So what is so interesting is he comes in, looks at the influence of cats, and listen very carefully to his conclusion. This man got so much, and he was even his life was threatened by cat lovers. But he's not talking against cats. You have to listen very carefully before you judge this man. Be very careful with the judgment. Just listen to what he says and also what his solution is. So let's, without further ado, I'm going to just mute my microphone again and blend his conversation in.
Hi, it's David Bird here. I'm at the International Ornithological Congress 2018 down at the Vancouver Convention Center in downtown Vancouver, and I'm sitting here with a very good friend of mine from the States, Pete Nara, who's a he is a very well-known ornithologist. And Pete, can I ask you a little bit about your background? I mean, how did you get involved in birds?
I'm one of these geeky people that sort of always knew what they wanted to do. Ever since I was very young, 6 years old, I had the wonderful opportunity to be exposed to a local nature center. And so I used to hang out at a local nature center where I was into reptiles, amphibians, birds. There was a naturalist there who was very, very good at spending time with kids, and I was a feral kid. I was
a feral kid?
Feral kid. I could roam anywhere I wanted to, do what I wanted to do.
A tough guy. Were you in a street gang and so on?
Street gang. And I wasn't quite in street gangs, but yeah, exactly. And so I was able to go down there, and he was misnetting birds, and I was able to kind of go help him at a very young age. And from that point on, I always knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know it was always going to be birds, but I knew I wanted to do natural history. And so always focused on natural history. And
so did you know that you wanted to do a master's and a PhD right from the get-go?
No. I went to a small undergraduate school because there was a guy there who was an amazing birder. His name was Noble Proctor, and he was.
I know the name. He wrote that textbook.
That's right. And so Noble was just he knew mushrooms, so I was really into mushrooms, really into reptiles, amphibians, all kinds of things, and birds. He was an amazing birder, I got done with that, and then I wanted to go to South America, and he pointed me to LSU, and so Louisiana State University. And there I met people like Ted Parker and John O'Neill.
Ted Parker.
Yep. So he was a good friend of mine, and so he and I.
The one that died in the plane crash.
That's right. With Al Gentry.
Very well-known guy.
Yep. So I spent time in the field with Al. Spent Al Gentry and Ted Parker, and these are all very inspiring individuals. And so when you have these role models like Ted, like Noble, like people at Connecticut Audubon, Miley Bowl, these people that are very passionate about what they do, it's impossible not to become passionate about these same issues. I've been very lucky to have these sort of mentors that took their mentorship responsibly, took it seriously. So.
Now, I know that you studied a wide variety of topics because I hear your name at conferences all the time, being quoted, plenary talks, for example, here at the Congress and so on. But I also know that you've achieved something that I thought was very brave in last year. And could you tell us a little bit about what you've done? It has to do with our favorite subject, which we both know a lot about, cats and birds.
Yeah, we both love cats and we both love birds, I know. And so several years ago, before I decided to undertake that book project, a postdoc and myself, Scott Loss, and another colleague, Tom Will, decided to try to quantify the amount of anthropogenic mortality that's
man-caused mortality.
Man-caused,
human-caused
direct mortality. Everything but habitat loss, which we know is one of the leading causes of mortality, or climate change in terms of what's predicted to be caused. We decided to figure out and calculate to the best ability we could, with the best available evidence that's out there, data that's out there, how many birds are killed every year by wind turbines, automobiles, cars, or cats, wires, collisions, etc., to basically prioritize where we're going to spend our time. And when we did that, it became clear that cats, by like 5 times, killed more birds every year, between 1.3 and 4 billion birds every year.
And this is in the U.S. or
in the U.S.
In the
U.S.
And is that feral cats and free-ranging pet cats, or a combination of both?
No, that is feral, unowned cats as well as owned cats. Unowned cats are responsible for 65% of that mortality, compared to outdoor cats that are owned. At the same time, Canada was doing the same sort of analysis, and while the magnitude of mortality wasn't the same, it was still by far the leading cause of direct anthropogenic mortality. I had also already conducted a couple different studies on the impacts of cats, so I had been looking at all the data out there, and what became clear is that we we needed to sort of have some sort of popular book on the topic. Nothing had been done. And so I decided to work on a project like that with a good close friend of mine, Chris Santella. I knew that I wasn't able to interview a lot of the cat people. They didn't know Chris. People knew me. I'd already been attacked by a lot of the cat people.
Gotcha.
And Chris had also written several books, so he had an agent, and so we decided to do it together. And that spawned into Cat Wars, the devastating consequences of a cuddly killer.
Yes, which is becoming a bestseller book among not just
wish.
ornithologists, but nature. Well, I think it's doing very, very well, actually, and it's certainly something that we ornithologists and wildlife conservationists have welcomed or whatever. But what kind of a reaction have you been getting from the other side of the fence, from the cat people? Are they happy you wrote this book? Or?
Cat people are not happy with me. No, they've been pushing against me for a long time.
Yes.
They are very passionate about cats. They really, that's their focus.
And
cats.
we understand that too. But
we understand it, but we're living in a day and age where we're basically in the sixth mass extinction. We're seeing a rate of extinctions that we have not seen before, just in the past 500 years.
Right.
We're losing species literally left and right. I mean, every 10 to 15 years. And so cats have contributed to the extinction of 63 species of lizards, mammals, and birds. For comparison, something like DDT, which, there was a wonderful book written by Rachel Carson called Silent Spring, which was a call to arms for a lot of environmentalists in the 60s and early 70s, which, was basically against sort of corporate America. We can't allow corporate America to sort of push things like DDT. And luckily, we stopped DDT, the application of DDT, before we lost species like the peregrine falcon, bald eagle, and brown pelican. Could you imagine that if we'd lost the bald eagle in the United States? It's
pretty embarrassing for you Americans.
Pretty embarrassing. But the fact of the matter is we've lost no species to DDT. No species has gone extinct to DDT.
It's true.
And it took about 20 to 30 years to really solve that problem. And as far as ecological dilemmas go and ecological problems, we've known about the cat problem for over 120 years, if not longer. 120 years. And we still have yet to do anything about this problem. Even though we've now, again, 63 species have been, have gone extinct. And that's a conservative estimate. And at least right now they threaten another 400 or so species around the world. And yet it's still a problem. And so it's a real challenge, and so we have an obligation to do everything we can to stop this problem. Otherwise, we would be complicit in the problem. And I refuse to be complicit to this problem. We have to solve this problem.
There's a famous example of one species of bird that was actually wiped out by a cat, a lighthouse keeper's cat on
Stevens Island.
Stevens Island. And that's in your book and so on. And a number of the people that we both know, like Stan Temple, for example, that did one of the early landmark studies on this issue or whatever, actually received death threats. Have you been facing this kind of thing?
I've gotten several death threats.
You've had several death threats. So the people that are opposing this book and the whole concept of keeping cats indoors are quite serious about this.
They're quite serious because they think that I'm going to kill the cats. I'm not going to kill the cats.
Right.
I mean, I think that we have to be honest with each other and basically realize that euthanasia has to be part of the equation. Because cats they have a high reproductive rate. They can produce 2 or 3 litters a year if they're not actually reproducing. And if there aren't mates available, they'll mate with each other, brothers and sisters, mothers and sons. And so it's because of that high reproductive rate, because they are indiscriminate killers, which they're just doing what they do, they're predators, they can spread. They are an invasive species. They can spread really rapidly. We've seen it over and over again on almost all the continents around the world.
I'm going to ask you something very tricky now. Okay? There's 2 kinds of mortality. Okay, there's compensatory mortality. And there's additive mortality. Additive mortality for our viewers means that the deaths by cats are added on to all the other things that birds die of: starvation, parasites, collisions, and so on. And then compensatory means that if they didn't die by the cats, they die by something else. Do you have a thought on what kind of mortality the cats are causing?
It's clear it's additive mortality.
It's additive.
When your species goes extinct, like cats have contributed to these 63 species extinctions, every one of those is an example of additive mortality. That cats are one of the primary causes of that species extinction. But there's several other examples. We've just published a paper that sort of reviews all those papers on additive mortality. There was was just an experimental study that came out was done in Australia, that looked at the additive mortality of cats on lizards, on several species of lizards, where they did exclosure experiments. And there have been several exclosure experiments that have shown that when you remove cats, populations go up. That's a clear example, a wonderful example of how cats are imposing additive mortality, and that it's not a matter of the animals, of birds being able to then compensate for that mortality and rebound because of relaxed density dependence.
That's a key point, I think, being an additive mortality. So do you have a message for cat lovers of how they can do something to help birds? And,
it's a really straightforward message. It's not good for cats to be outside. It's not good for people to be outside because of the diseases that cats spread, and it's not good for the native ecosystems that we as humans have to preserve on this planet. And so if you have a cat that goes outside, I get it. Make it your last cat that goes outside. The next cat you get, make it an indoor cat.
That's exactly the message I want you to say, because I feel exactly the same way. Pete, it's been great talking to you.
My pleasure, Dave.
Maybe you could tell him where you can get the book Cat Wars and so on, who published it.
Cat Wars was published.
This is just for your information.
Cat Wars was published by Princeton University Press. It's available online at Amazon or probably some of your local bookstores.
All right, get the hell out of here. Thank you.
Well, wasn't that interesting? I mean, so this gives you a little bit of insight of, there's his book again, that's Cat Wars, and I've given all the references below, so you can find them, and I really recommend to spread the news and educate people on cats, because I think they're an absolute menace the way they are. And he said it very clearly, just it's not against cats, but they have a very high reproductive quota. They're very successful, and they're an absolute menace. They are predators. That's what they are by instinct, and we have to take care of them. Okay, so keep them inside and keep them at bay. So yes, and euthanasia has to be part of the equation too. I think, my goodness, what a conference it has been so far. So I've been very fortunate. Before we go, and thank you again. I've got some more donations, so thank you very much. I think the last one came. Let me just look quickly. Yeah, thank you, Lisa Belaine. I hope I hope I pronounced your name correct. But thank you for all the kind donations that I've received today. That keeps me going backwards, forwards. All the extra Wi-Fi costs that I have, so I can cover all the costs. It's really highly appreciated. That's the way I can keep the channel up and keep it free for all of you. So also my Patreon. All the Patreon contributions, I really want to thank you from my heart. It's so important what you're doing. It keeps us going. So finally, and I think we've spent exactly an hour, which is perfect. What I just wanted to show you is finally, when I left the convention, how beautiful Vancouver is. I'm just going to join me as we walk out, and I'm just going to show you some of the scenes. The first scene is going to show you the convention center, and then you're going to see beautiful Canada Place. That's why I came to Canada. I love Canada. That's why I live here. It's the nature, it's everything in Canada. It's absolutely fabulous. So let me just show you that. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Here we are. So I wanted to say thank you very much for joining. And it's been really wonderful to have you. Thank you for all the donations and everything. You can see we live in a lovely Vancouver, but wherever we are in one world. It's only one globe, and we have to take care of our environment. You can see climate change is a serious threat. I mean, if you look at the fires we've had in BC, they've come right across, affected the United States. It's not the export of Canadian lumber, as some say, that has affected, that is causing climate change in the United States. Climate change is a serious thing that is everywhere. We've seen the terrible fires in Redding. We've seen in Australia they're going through incredible droughts. We've seen unusual rains and floods in other areas and so on. So we live in we are now really playing with fire in the truest sense, and we have to take care of our environment. We have to take care of all the garbage we produce and so on. So please spread the news, and I hope you've enjoyed the education in this channel. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've got a stack of cards now to make my channel more interesting, together with my helpers, to bring more variety in. There are lots of interesting new topics I will prepare. We will be talking about orcas in the future, about the Philippine eagle, and many other subjects. So I do hope you enjoy it very much. I'm looking at your comments, and thank you very much for being part of the show. And yeah, I just have to see now because I got so many. Yeah, there we go. So I wish you a wonderful weekend, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if I find anything more, I will save it for a future broadcast. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next Friday again. Thank you so much, and enjoy it, and enjoy our wonderful world, as long as it's still wonderful. Thank you.